Hello and welcome to the Joy Dealers podcast, where we talk about emotional healing and inner work in general. I am here with my dear friend Leonie today again, and our last conversation sparked some new questions I heard.
Yes, hi. Happy to be back again.
Yes.
I loved the tools that you shared in our last conversations, especially the ones where we bravely go towards our, um, for example, negative beliefs and accept them as they are in that moment, for example. And also the conversation before that, you shared to allow oneself to really feel all the emotions, be it anger, grief, whatever could come up, right?
Hmm.
And that really made me think of some parts of the spiritual culture, like toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing. That's why I wanted to talk about that. Maybe, first of all, get clear on things. What does that even mean? And how do we know if we are practicing that, or how to even avoid spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity and take the brave path and try to go towards the negative or so-called negative beliefs and emotions as well.
Hmm. Great topic. Love it.
Yes, I think a triggering one though,
Hmm.
because we probably can all see ourselves in it in a way, right? Because it is pleasant to feel the positive emotions, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I wanted to ask, could you give a brief description on both the terms? What does toxic positivity even mean, or spiritual bypassing?
Okay. Yeah, of course. So, toxic positivity basically means that I do not accept anything that sounds negative to me, that triggers negative feelings within me, or see any expression of negative feelings in front of me. So, whenever somebody is complaining, whenever somebody is in a bad mood, if somebody is crying, maybe somebody is expressing anger about something, and I want to gloss over it with positivity, that is called toxic positivity.
All right.
And then we have spiritual bypassing. That means that we use spiritual practices and spirituality and spiritual terms to avoid anything negative in our lives and also avoid reality and our day-to-day life. So we jump from yoga class to yoga class and listen to positive spiritual texts and stuff like that, and bombard our system with these good sounding and good feeling things. And whenever something negative comes up, we try to meditate them away, or yoga them away, or use whatever practice we use in spirituality to get rid of it.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's I can understand that it is hard to really feel the darkness that can come up, right? Or even seeing ourselves in a way, like, for example, that we have negative traits or even bad ones, um, as well as the good ones, right?
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I would say it is a goal, or it could be a goal, to stop labeling them as good or negative, to stop labeling them as positive and negative, or good and bad, because actually this is a hint that we are still in a very childlike um, mental state. There we talked last week um, about that children need clear rules, and they need clear black and white thinking to to make the complex reality a bit easier to understand and to grow into. And when we have these positive and negative clusters of emotions, for example, I don't believe that there is any negative emotion. Every emotion has its place. So every emotion serves a purpose. And anger, for example, is catastrophic when when we regress, when we repress it, because anger is a way to express that our boundaries have been hurt.
Yeah.
And we need that aggressive energy to fix our boundaries. And if I'm not willing to feel my anger, wow, I'm going to be a doormat. People are going to step over my boundaries because I'm not willing to show them.
Yeah. And anger is such a motivating driving force, right? It
Yes.
it can be used in such a powerful way,
Mhm.
constructive way as well.
Yes. Yes. If we can accept it as a positive emotion, actually, it's. I mean, I as I said, I would love to get away from labeling emotions as positive and negative, even though, yeah, we learn something very different in our culture. There are a few feelings that are acceptable, and all of the rest is basically, yeah, please either have them in the privacy of your own home, or better even, don't have them at all.
Yeah. Which
Because if you have them, that means you're not spiritually evolved.
Mhm.
And this is also a part of spiritual bypassing. Okay, you're feeling anger, that means you're still not in the love and light field that you could be in if you're enlightened, because when you're enlightened, then you don't feel any anger anymore. And this is, I'm sorry to say, bullshit.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. It's so interesting because I think there's so much socialization
Mhm.
and it, a lot of it I think comes from the codependent parts of within us, right? That we don't want someone to be, for example, angry in front of us because it makes us feel uncomfortable. um, and for example, spiritual bypassing, to kind of deny someone else's emotions, or even put them in a label that way, that's something that really avoids the reality for the other person.
Yes, it is basically, it's it and when we go back to, when we go later on to practices, actually these are situations that you can really use to find out which feelings you need to work on.
Mhm.
Because when somebody is expressing a certain emotion in front of you and you start to feel uncomfortable, that means that that emotion within you is so repressed that it starts saying like, oh wow, look, there's somebody expressing me here, maybe I can be expressed now too. And that feels so dangerous, because we don't know how to deal with, let's stay with anger, we don't know how to deal with anger within us, that we run the other direction, instead of being like, hey, okay, maybe this is a possibility for me here to really get in touch with my own anger.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
Mm.
avoidance is such a big thing, especially when we think of positive, like the toxic
Mhm,
positivity,
mhm.
good vibes only, and I only want to hang out with people if they're uh, in a good mood or things like that.
Yeah.
Um, that
Yes.
takes a big part away from interaction and life itself, right?
Yes, yes, yes. It takes away from the richness of life and emotions. And I'm not. I mean, this is not an invitation to accept abuse, or to only surround yourself with people who are chronically depressed. I mean, it is totally understandable that I mean, we are influenced by the people around us. But what you are saying and what you mean is more that the slightest negative mood, or depressed, or something like that, mood can already trigger this toxic positivity that shames the person that is feeling something different, you know.
Yes. Yes, and brave enough to express
Yes.
the real emotion that is felt in that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's such a this topic is so interesting because I think there's a lot of triggers that can come up within the conversation, and then um, in the spiritual culture or even in media, it's so much about exactly those two topics. And then even when I reflect on myself, it is amazing to go to a yoga retreat and feel completely like love and light, right? And it's so
Hmm.
well because if we're going towards healing, that is gonna kick our bums at times and is exhausting in so many ways. So of course it's also nice to be able to take a breather and feel the really like very positive and high highs of this practice, right?
Yes, yes. And the thing is, the more we are able to connect with the quote unquote negative aspects or the shadow aspects of ourselves, the higher the pleasure and the positive emotions are also going to be. So, what we are actually doing is we are paving the way for us to be able to tolerate so much more pleasure, because the majority of us, we cannot tolerate so much love. We
Mhm.
cannot tolerate so much joy. We cannot tolerate so much ecstasy. So we give it up for the price of not feeling our negative depths as well, or our deeper emotions, our lower lying chakras. And this invitation is wow, we are really learning to use that muscle and to strengthen that muscle to live so much more, to
Mhm.
experience so much more, and to experience this potency that lies with each moment when we are willing to let go of our resistances and our protection mechanisms.
Yes.
And as we said in the last episode, this is not to be disrespectful with these protection mechanisms. They had their use, and they are very, very important and very smart from the psychological point of view of a child. But when we have reached adulthood, at least it is in my aspiration for myself to develop into a full-fledged adult and not stay stuck in a childhood um, mentality, or in a childlike a way of seeing the world.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there are so many different parts within us, and I have a question about that in a second for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, so, in the emotions that we feel, right? Our anger could be coming from a certain age, or our grief, or even our love. We could feel and connect in a very childish way of love, maybe even codependent way, and so on. So I would love to know what tool you would recommend when we're going into that protection mechanism of thinking, no positive vibes only right now. I can't bear the darkness. I can bear the shadows. I don't want to feel this anger. It scares me. Um, what what is your go-to um, tool that you use, or do you have something that you can share?
Yes, of course. So the first thing I want to say about anger, because anger was a big one for me, and I started having really, really violent pictures. When I started working with my anger, I had like really bloody, murdering images in front of my eyes. And
Sounds
uh,
crazy.
What?
Sounds very graphic.
Yeah. um and yeah, that was very scary. So I think this is actually the biggest fear of feeling anger. Like, if I start feeling my anger right now, I'm gonna kill someone.
Mm.
And what I want to say is, I realized for myself that the more repressed a feeling is, the more violent the images of your psyche will be.
Mhm.
Because the psyche doesn't know how to communicate with you otherwise than with these really strong pictures to shock you and to get your attention. It has nothing to do with me having a murderous energy within me that needs taming. It just means that there is that there is a very helpless child within me that doesn't know what else to draw to get my attention but to draw blood all over the place, let's say. um and so this is the first invitation to see the images that come up when we start working with these kind of repressed energies within us, that these images have nothing to do with you eh, as a person. That doesn't make you a bad person. It also doesn't make you a good person. It's just a way of the psyche to communicate with us, because the psyche communicates a lot through images. And I love working with images and symbols for that reason, because that passes by the mental way of thinking about things, and goes straight to the source of an emotion when we work with images. Because images, I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Marion Woodman who said that metaphor is the language of the soul. And
Mm.
so working with metaphors, working with images, working with myths, all of that can really bring up the emotions that are repressed in a very direct way, without our mind commenting on it so much.
Yes, which is exactly the thing we spoke about, right? How lovely it is to practice, um, to just observe without the labels, without the big judgment that we so also often have.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And also to invite the judger to show up,
Yes.
because that's what I love to do also in sessions, is to say, hey, you judging voice, show me your face.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to speak with a voice that is whispering somewhere in the back of my mind. I want you in front of me, look me in the eyes, and say what you got to say to me in my face. And that often already takes out the power that that voice has, because when it stands in front of me, I can start to relate to it in a completely different way. And I can also separate from it, because I see that this is not me. This is a part of me.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it can also be an introject, but let's not get into these terminologies. But it's a part of me that is also, again, trying to help with really, really bad tools. If you get a craftsman into your house, and he has no sharp tools, his hammer is from plastic or something like that, and then he cannot really help you that well. So we have these these craftsmen and women from our childhood that have this plastic toolbox that they bring, and they want to fix real problems with that, but they're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is one tool, is to work with images. And the other one that I shared with you in our conversation before we started recording is to ask inwardly how old our protection mechanism think we are. So
Mhm.
this is a bit to get your head wrapped around. So we have a protector within us, let's say this judging voice in the background, and we want to ask that part how old it thinks we are, because often they are so caught up in in negativity, and um in a certain age, that they don't realize that we've actually matured. So they still think we're 5 years old, even though we might be over 30 or 40. And to do that update inwardly, to be like, hey, okay, I'm taking ownership now of my problem, and I'm not going to let a bunch of kids take ownership and take care of something that is not to be taken care of by children. Children are here to play, full stop. That's their task in life. And if they do anything else, then that means that they have taken on tasks that should have been taken over by adults.
Yeah.
Of course, when they are getting a bit older, they can start to be introduced to some responsibilities, to help in the household and all of that. But if the child takes on responsibility for any emotional things that the parent is not capable to take care of, this is wrong. Per se, wrong. Because that means that the adult himself, the parent himself, is stuck in their own childish behavior.
Yes. And that's where the protectors come in, right?
Yes, exactly. To protect basically that child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially because it's um, depending on the age, it could be overbearing, overwhelming.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So,
And as I said already, a child needs reality to be broken down into simpler terms for them, not to be overwhelmed by emotions that they are not even able to understand yet.
yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Lovely. This is, so basically, um, when would you say that one of the tools that you just described is trying, for example, stick to that example,
Mhm.
with anger, and instead asking that anger, for example, show me, and I'm just like little person now.
Mhm.
Can you
Yes,
that?
exactly.
All right, lovely.
Yes. Mhm.
Uh, you share that go into a dialogue with the parts of yourself, or that, or even shared the judgmental voice, and so very
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I want to say something about toxic positivity. And I mean, we are talking here on the Joy Dealers podcast. So there is a possibility to see that this could be toxic positivity as well. And I want to explain that the Joy Dealers actually targets a joy that is much, much deeper than that superficial happiness that we think is worth so much. Because the joy of really living life to the fullest with all of its emotional expressions, that is a joy that is unconditional. That is, I mean, if imagine if every emotion is welcome and is positive, how much joy you will feel the whole day. You
yes,
will just be joy, because there is no feeling that you need to repress. There is no situation that you need to avoid. That is so much freedom.
yeah. And it's I think that exactly targets the deep acceptance that we all crave, right?
Hmm.
Deep
Yes.
acceptance, and you said the word unconditional, the unconditional love that we all crave so badly.
Yes.
um and if we can start with ourselves and give that to ourselves, that deep acceptance definitely can set us free, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that sounds like a lot of joy.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes.
Nice. And I also about yeah, you talked about super, or you mentioned the term superficial. also one part of the toxic positivity, always looking for the silver lining and things like that. You set me one time when I was in a rather dark place, you set me free with one really nice sentence that I want to share now because it just came up for me when I was not doing well, and I said, since weeks I can't get myself into a positive state at the moment. And it was so lovely because you exactly mirrored that acceptance for me, because you said, and I hope I'm going to quote you in a very right way, well, maybe it is not the time to look for a silver lining at the moment, but just accept that it's not a time to feel good. And that was so freeing and so lovely to release the pressure of seeing something good. And that's a label again, right? What
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we talked about, because it's so ingrained into our culture and everything that, but I have to feel good, I have to kind of learn something right away. But to release that pressure, even
Mm-hmm.
accept the state you're in, even if it's uncomfortable, or even if it feels like you're stuck, or maybe even not learning something from that situation, and, and be trying, at least trying,
Mm-hmm.
stay in the now, even there in the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah. And this is exactly the difference between pain and suffering.
Yes.
So if we take a little excursus into Buddhism, that there is no suffering in the now. There is pain in the now, and you can have pain in your foot or in your heart even, or in your shoulders. But suffering is when I am trying to change the situation right now, even though I'm not able to change anything. This is what creates suffering, and this can even in the most positive of situations, it can create a situation. So I mean,
Yes.
um so we don't want to create situations by trying to avoid the present moment. It's what is here, and that's all beautiful. And that's that's the opposite of toxic positivity, because if I can see that this is again just an expression of life, and that it feels shitty. I mean, we don't need to even sugarcoat it. Oh, but it's such a beautiful feeling of feeling shitty. It can just feel like shit. Like I'm in a very bad place right now. That's okay. Okay, I'm in a bad place right now.
Yeah.
So what? you
Yeah.
know
Love.
this is thank you for reminding me of that. It's always good to hear the wisdom that gets shared within a certain situation, because I don't believe that this was me speaking here. It's always the wisdom that gets co-created, as I said already before, between two nervous systems, and helping each other reduce the stress and the tension within our nervous systems. I mean, yeah, is magnificent.
Yeah.
This feeling of relaxation. I mean, this is the greatest outcome of every session that I ever went into, when the person comes out and says, wow, I feel so relaxed. Because the all of that fighting against the negative feelings is so much more exhausting than to actually feel.
Yeah.
And this is also my personal definition of healing. If feeling my feelings is less painful than holding up my tension and my resistances towards feelings.
Yes. Lovely.
Hmm.
A lot.
Oh, thank you
and
so
it's
much.
and it's so freeing, when you come to that realization, right, to
Hmm.
kind of acceptance, it's so freeing. And it feels like all the weights have been lifted, right,
Yes.
that come with all that repressing.
Yeah. 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 There is so much energy in there, and this is why yeah, negative feelings hold the most energy within our system. We really feel transformed when we go into working with our shadow, into working with our repressed parts.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it takes a village to push everything down like that, like we're socialized to do, right?
Yes, yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Oh, lovely, interesting. So to break it down, to have some sort of little tiny conclusion, basically, we can offer a dance, or like gets our anger or our emotions or our judgmental selves or parts, get them to dance with us so that we can get more release and deeper into feeling all the feelings, right?
Yes, getting into contact with them and into direct contact with them.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it doesn't sound that hard that it always tends to seem in the first place.
Yes, yes. And the thing is that it gets easier the more often you do it. It's a practice. So spirituality is a practice. Everything in life is a practice.
Yeah.
The more we practice something, the easier it gets, and the more, I would say, almost routined you can go in and out of your feelings and not get stuck anywhere. I
Yeah.
can go into depression and come out of it the next day, and get the fruits out of the depression. And this is a topic for another episode, but get the fruits that lie in depression, because there is so much treasure in there that yeah, that I need, and then go out of that again. I don't need to get stuck in depression.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's the reality is radically different from what we learn, and this is sometimes difficult to accept, because wow, so many people have preached so much different stuff than what I am actually experiencing. Could that actually be the truth if I am experiencing something that is so different from what is taught? But I am coming more and more to the conclusion that it is.
Yes, for sure. For sure
Mm.
that there needs to be a lot of change in how things are taught, right?
Yes, yes.
Um, which is so lovely that again, um, you preach it basically, but in a nice way.
I try to also practice what I preach. Of course, not always. I'm also only human, but it's really beautiful to also speak to other people who are on the same path, or who are trying to get there as well, and realize that we are not alone, and to have our nervous systems heal each other, because I only believe that healing only happens in relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Which is the hardest part often, right? It's
Yes,
the
yes.
relationship. And I love what you're saying about the nervous systems, because that's something that I can definitely feel. For example, with you and our friendship, it is of so much worth, to have someone where you can really be truly yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so safe, and that's calming on the nervous system in on a completely different level.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful, for that. And I think it's lovely if there's, um, people out there like that even share it not only in friendships but in a wider way.
Yes. And thank you for helping me with that. We are here on a mission to really make life more beautiful than how we found it on this planet, and this is I think this is the greatest way to dedicate my own personal life to the world.
Yes. Love.
Mm.
Put some more healing in it,
Yes. Oh,
into this lovely chaotic planet.
yes.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, and sharing the tools once more. always so helpful, and
Mm.
I love that they're so practical, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, they are all tested out on myself first before I let them out into the world. And I I always see that the ones that I've tested on myself, they tend to work on other people as well, because we're all human, and so our nervous systems kind of function in a very similar way. I mean, give anybody acceptance and a place where they can relax, and they will mostly, I mean, I haven't seen it in a different way than that brings healing, so yeah.
Lovely.
Mm.
Thank you so much for this
Thank you.
and I already am excited for our next one.
Yes, me too. Talk to you soon. So much love to you.
Bye to you.
Bye.